Hello and welcome to our Get Noticed Online podcast brought to you by DigiHype Media, digital media made easy. Our guest today is Tim Whitnell. Tim, thanks for being here.
Anytime, Clint. Nice pleasure to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Yeah, Tim is a multi-award winning journalist. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background here. And newspaper reporter with more than 32 years experience. Tim's education ranges from graduate at Sheridan College, Ryerson University, McMaster University. Tim is involved as a fundraising volunteer at the Salvation Army and is also an active member with his church and is also a Eucharistic minister. Very nice.
Yeah, I was actually. We did that for my wife and I, Kathleen, for a good 14 years or so between two churches, but recently backed off on that just because Kathleen's now involved in the choir, so that takes up a lot of her time. So
yeah, I guess so. And Christmas being a busy time,
but
I guess.
But we were Eucharistic ministers for quite a while between two churches in Oakville, Mississauga.
That's fantastic. That's great. Tim has interviewed many people over the years as a reporter. And as I mentioned, Tim has won many awards for his journalistic work across Canada. Aside from writing, Tim, his interests include hockey, baseball, family, and of course anything sports oriented.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Playing it, watching it, yeah. Whatever I can still do at this age, so advanced age, sure.
You're still a young guy. Anyways, welcome to our podcast, Tim. Maybe you could start off by giving us a deep dive and give us some background and some, a feel for what Tim's all about.
Sure, yeah. So I was born in Oakville. All the rest of my family was born out in Sarnia, Ontario.
Right.
I'm the only one, so there was 5 of us, the 2 siblings and parents and such. And so grew up in Oakville and all my school years there, elementary, high school and such, stuck around. I've kind of lived in the area. I've actually been up in Cambridge. I've lived in the area in Burlington and just around GTA for a number of years, just kicked around. And but I was rooted in that one job for pretty much my entire career when I was with Metroland Media and specifically with the Halton division of Metro, so the Burlington Post newspaper and the affiliated sister papers in the area. So excellent. I went through, as you mentioned quickly, just went through after high school. I went to McMaster University, and actually I did a 3-year program there, and halfway through the 3 years, I was doing anthropology.
Right. Okay.
Pretty broad, generic, but very interesting discipline. And halfway through, I got thinking, okay, so that's a like. Now, what's more practical? What am I going to do with this?
Right.
And I thought, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. Do I really want to go up to the Arctic and dig into the tundra? It sounds interesting, but when you start to think about it, is that really something I want to do on a full-time basis?
Right.
Probably not. So I stuck it out, got my 3 years, and then some light bulb hit me that I just like to write, read, and such. I thought, maybe I can be a writer of some sort. So that's when I went to Sheridan as a direct entry student. They gave me direct entry into the second year because of my
your degree,
kind of thing. So, but I did a Ryerson night class before that to make sure I really wanted to do it.
Okay.
Ryerson University, now called the Metro University in Toronto.
Right.
Did a night course in journalism, did well with that, enjoyed it, was encouraged to pursue it, and I thought, sure, why not? Let's give it a shot. So that's when I went to Sheridan College, direct entry into the second year, and did well there, enjoyed it, latched on to Oakville Beaver, which is a Metroland weekly newspaper, did some sports there. Came open in the sister paper in Burlington, the Burlington Post, and basically after a really short interview, I got hired on pretty much immediately, stuck it out for 7 years in sports, and then with the recession in the early 90s, I was jobs were lost, unfortunately, and I was able to keep mine, and they switched me over to news. And I did news for about 25 years and really enjoyed it because it was just different, and it was just more broader based and just gave me more opportunities to talk to different people.
Right.
Kind of thing, yeah. So
that's quite the switch from your original starting point.
For sure, yeah. For sure, yeah.
That's excellent. So so that's great. So you've sort of gone the gamut with education, and your training started in the field in sports, and then from that into news, and did that for quite a long time. So you've met a lot of interesting people, I'm sure.
For sure, I have. Yes, definitely. Yeah, I've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands, of people. Written hundreds, thousands of stories, short, medium, long. Feature length and hard news.
Right.
I covered courts for quite a bit of time. Just pretty much everything: education, health, police, fire.
Right.
and all that. So, you get to speak to the people who are sort of in charge of those institutions,
Right,
and,
right.
and get to see another side that a lot of people don't. And then, of course, my job was to elaborate and let people know what these people do, how they do it, what's happening in your community,
Right.
why it's important, kind of thing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So tell me, I mean, over the years, you must have had some. What's the most challenging interview you might think off the top of your head that you may have had? I'm sure you've had a few.
Yeah, they're all challenging, especially
Right.
with politicians. Anytime I would interview a politician about whether it was a provincial, national, or more likely a local one,
Right.
city or regional councillor, they couch their terms. They're very careful as to what they say usually, so it doesn't make great copy a lot of the time.
Okay, okay.
But of course, you can't make anything up. But so the a lot of interesting people, but a little tough getting information out of them sometimes, and even harder to go through some of those budgets and things for school boards and the
That has to be a bit painful.
Oh, they're like really, like, you can see this, like they're like that thick.
Wow.
They're inches thick, and you have to go through them and try to ferret out for yourself and for the reader ultimately. What is this saying? What's important about it? How does it impact the reader? How does it impact the resident? Kind of thing. So a little dull, dreary at times, and slogging, but still very important. So that was my job when I was covering politics, kind of thing.
No, that has to be very challenging because obviously you're looking at numbers and graphs and everything else.
I'm no accountant, and it's all just basically learning on the fly, and then using your knowledge that you have, and of course talking to editors and talking, of course, to the principals themselves,
the short
politicians
points or whatever,
and the people behind the scenes in administration and finance and budget and all that, just to get an idea, an understanding of what does this really mean.
Right. Well, you must have met some interesting politicians over the years. Can you name?
I wasn't in that realm for all that long,
right.
But I remember one time former Prime Minister Joe Clark, the Conservative, came to town and for dinner. I got to interview him briefly once. Not too many of the really high level ones. There was more the local MPs and MPPs,
gotcha,
and such, and
sort of GTA, Oakville,
exactly, or representing
Burlington
or Milton or whatever. But can't say I've ever had any problem with any of them.
Right.
Yeah, I never really in my career had anybody come back on me saying, that's not accurate what you wrote, or you misquoted me, or anything like that. So that was, of all the things that anyone can say about me, that's what I appreciate and the most, is that people could say they could trust what I wrote, kind of thing, that it was going to be accurate. Whether they liked it or not.
But it would be accurate.
But it was accurate.
So a lot of that must come from research before obviously you sit in front of them. You need to make sure your facts are right.
Exactly, for sure. Yeah, a lot of background reading documents and such. Like I say, especially with budget and things, and preparing your questions and trying to get a real understanding of what does this mean, and ask the question as to what does it mean for everybody. Why should someone care about it? Is that what I'm reading and what I'm going to tell them? What's most important? And what is the message?
Gotcha. So what in your opinion, over the years, what has changed in your industry, in that industry, that maybe is a challenge?
Oh, it's changed so much. I mean, when I first started, we were still in the age of, in the nascent, the early years of digital and computers. So I remember that having a what they called a K-Pro. It was it was a big thing that looked like a suitcase, metal. You could do it up like a suitcase and unfold it, and had that little convex green screen, kind of thing. And it was high tech back in the late '80s.
Back in the day,
kind of thing. But so, and I was using a typewriter when we first started to do some of my work too.
Wow.
Just at the end of the typewriter era, kind of thing. So, but then of course computers, and we always used Macs in Metroland, Apple products. So I got to use all those and over the years and the different types. And but technology, obviously, digital photography made a huge difference for the photographers, especially. You didn't have to worry about film that was being ruined, or if you didn't know if it was going to come out right, you could instantly just look at your camera and see what's what, and if you had to reshoot something, kind of thing, or not. But I mean, the biggest change now, I would say, is the rise of podcasters, and people who've got blogs and people who've got a multitude of opinions out there, and and a lot of them are, in my opinion, are opinions,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not necessarily facts. And I think that journalism is getting conflated now with people who call themselves journalists
Right.
and are not necessarily trained to be journalists. They may know what they're saying.
I tend to agree.
Yeah, and it's a bit worrisome for me. I think for a lot
Yeah.
of people in media, that there seems to be this convergence, and who can you trust,
Right.
kind of thing. Is what you're reading, what you're hearing, accurate? What's the source? Who are the sources?
Now, a lot of that, Tim, if I can, stems from social media, I would guess. How
For
do you
sure.
feel that's impacted the industry? I mean, podcasts are one such
Mm-hmm.
part of it, but certainly social media with Facebook and Instagram
Oh
and
yeah,
everything
yeah.
else.
I mean, and as journalists, you have to look at that, all those aspects of social media, and glean them. And for whatever information you can find, it might cause you to ask questions, to different avenues of information that you wouldn't have known before.
Right.
So I mean, there's good things about it, of course. It can open up information
Yeah.
for you about different topics and things and people to talk to. Sure. It's just that there's so much of it out there. How
Right.
much can you trust?
Yeah, yeah.
Really. Yeah.
Nothing's being disseminated or checked over, and
True. A lot of it is
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
that's a big challenge.
For sure.
So tell me what part of that job gave you the most enjoyment? Was it the research part? Was it the actual face-to-face interviews?
Yeah, the interviews, I think, because I met so many different people, like kids I've interviewed, usually in the sports realm, but, fundraising realm or whatever, adults of all ages, backgrounds. I interviewed some really cool people, athletes and professional athletes who happened to
Right.
come to town, some that were from the Metro Halton area, others that were just visiting for whatever reason. Just to name a few. My hockey hero, Bobby Orr.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one of my last interviews that I did before I left back in 2018 was Bobby Orr, and I got a one-on-one with him at, I think it was Leggett Ford and Leggett Buick, Pontiac
awesome is
in
that?
Burlington. It's amazing. Yeah, I've always heard he was a good guy and a little reserved, but he was really good. Like, he was really open with me. I felt he was
Is
anyway.
that a Maple Leaf jersey he wears? No, it's not, right? Okay, sorry. Just
No,
taking a little
no.
dig there.
Yeah, so that was
That's awesome.
totally cool. That
That would be very cool.
what I think maybe the most memorable. There's two of them in the sports realm. Three, I guess. Don Cherry.
Right.
Don't hear much about him anymore.
Yeah.
But
Interesting character. Isn't he?
yeah. He was in Burlington for the Burlington International Games breakfast, the big games, and a bunch of us were sitting around talking to him.
Right.
And he was very engaging, of course.
Yeah, no, he's a very, very nice person.
And
to talk
such.
To, yeah.
And at the end of the interview, he says,
Pretty straightforward.
"You guys haven't asked me the question." And everyone's going, "What's the question? You haven't asked me about Blue, his bull terrier, the dog." Yeah, almost as famous as Don.
Right,
kind of
right,
thing.
right.
He's had several of them over the years, but yeah. And they said, "Oh, yeah, well, okay, Don, how's Blue?" And then he would go into his little speech about how great a dog he was and kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, so
That's interesting.
it's just
eh?
little things like that. Sometimes you just remember. It's inconsequential in terms of the interview.
Right.
but,
But it's important to them, right?
Exactly.
Obviously.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly, if you
Yeah,
don't mind,
no,
two others.
sure. Cool.
There was I'm trying to remember his name, a very famous fast pitch, a guy from the States.
Right.
The king in his court, and Eddie Feiner, super famous guy in the fast pitch realm.
Right.
Back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. He used to pitch again in exhibitions against like the biggest hitters of the day from Major League Baseball and strike them out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, now baseball, fast pitch aren't quite the same thing, but
Right,
still,
right.
he was doing that. He came one day to Burlington, and I covered him playing. I forget, they're playing some exhibition against somebody, kind of thing, and I thought, oh, this is an interesting guy. It's like, oh man, I didn't really know too much about him. It's like
Right.
really cool, kind of thing. And then he kind of rubbed me the wrong way in the interview afterwards. He was,
really?
yeah, and I don't think I even wrote about it that in terms. I just told people, what he did and how amazing
Right,
his
just the
career
facts,
was
yeah.
and stuff. Because I didn't know him well enough, and I
Right,
think the
right.
guy was at the end of a long tour, and he wasn't young anymore, and I figured he was just having a bad day.
Right.
So sometimes when you're
Wow.
a reporter, you gotta. I wrote a column, and I could have written that. I don't think I did. I think I gave him a bit of a break on that.
Just a bit of a human side to it,
Yeah.
obviously, right? A good reporter.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta ferret out, pick and choose what you think
Right.
is important or not, and what's fair and what's not fair.
So I was going to say, is there controversial things you've dealt with? Is that would be part of it, sort of fall into that category? Or just
no. I mean, no. If anything
surprising,
that's
I guess.
truly controversial, that is important needs to be reported, but
Right.
it has to be reported in the
Right,
context
right.
of the facts and, in fairness to the subject themselves, that they've had a fair chance to give their side of something,
Right.
kind of thing. So no, yeah, I mean, you're never afraid to write something controversial, but it had to be backed by facts.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then I mean, it just makes sense. It's fair to the person you're interviewing, and it's fair to the viewers, right? Or the
Exactly,
listeners, right?
yeah.
The readers.
And I was going to say, sorry, the one other
Yeah, go
guy
ahead.
that I interviewed, he's still alive. People will know the name if you're a hockey fan. Ken Dryden.
Can't
The,
write.
the famous
met him
Montreal
once,
Canadiens
yes.
goalie, yes.
Yeah, very
So
nice man.
he'd written one of his books. I think it was his second book, Home
Right.
Game, because I was just looking at it at home, and he signed it for me. He actually had me come to his home in Toronto on Lawrence Avenue
Oh wow.
back in 1989, because I was just looking at the book and what he wrote for me inside the sleeve,
Right.
the cover. And I have to admit, when I was a kid, Boston Bruins, Bobby Orr was my team.
Right.
And he was beating the Bruins all the time in the playoffs, especially
Right.
when he was a rookie, winning the cup when the Boston had their best year ever. And as much as I never like to use the word hate. Even as a kid, I hated the guy because he was so good. It bothered me so much that
Sort of
this young
sports
guy-
passion hate.
Yes, like how dare you beat my
my
Bruins,
people,
who are
yeah.
supposed to win every year,
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of thing. So any year you're not supposed to win. Montreal Canadiens were always the winners,
Right,
kind
right.
of thing. But I told him that too. I said I
What'd
didn't
he
like
say?
I didn't like you when I was a kid, and he kind of just laughed because he probably heard it before.
Oh yeah,
And
for
he-
sure.
in the context of Orr, and he said, "Oh yeah," he said, I understand. He said that's perfectly understandable, kind of thing. And
Right,
I ended
right,
up writing
right.
a column about meeting him and the book and stuff, and I admitted that I had this out for him as a kid,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that now he's a totally cool guy, very nice guy,
Very nice man.
and that I respected. Even as a kid, I knew I had to respect what he was doing.
Right. Yeah,
kind of
for
thing.
sure.
But it was just cool, and he's just like, oh, and he's actually very, the guy's super smart, and he's very personable, and he turned it around and said to me, he said, you know what, your job is really difficult, isn't it? I don't think he was just trying to play up to me,
Right.
like kissing me or anything like that. He said, he said, I write books. He says, I get a lot of time to research and all this stuff. He says, you guys are writing every day, right? You're on deadline all the time. I said, yeah, you're right. I said, I never really thought about it that way. I said,
Right.
I said, writing a novel's got to be super difficult too, but it's a different process.
Right. Right.
And I said, but yeah, thank you. I said, you're right. It is very difficult. It's not easy, kind of thing. But yeah, so he kind of made me like him.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you became a fan without
Yeah,
trying to be a fan.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, good for
Exactly,
you.
yeah.
So Tim, obviously, I mean, clearly our viewers can see you're a big sports fan.
Yep.
Right. Hockey, more specifically, but you're
Right.
also involved in or like baseball and many
Yeah,
other
yeah.
sports.
No, I follow. I watch baseball. I watch football. It's Canadian, mostly American football. But
Right.
my dad used to take me to the Argos and the
Right.
Cat games and the old Ivor Wynn
Yep.
and the old exhibition
Yep.
stadium and
Where it
back,
snows and you're sitting in the snow and having a
back and forth
mead
and the
and, yeah.
bad weather and the bad language and the bad behavior by people by the guys under the stands, especially off Barton Street at Ivor Wynn Stadium.
Right.
Yeah, it was pretty memorable. I remember more
Could
about.
be a very memorable.
I remember
area.
more of the off-field stuff as a kid than I do the stuff that was actually going on the field.
Right.
But CFL, I was huge into that in the 70s, and then the NFL, and almost anything sports related. Anyone who's performing at a high level, I want to watch them.
Right. Who's your favorite hockey player other than Bobby?
It was always Bobby, and
Bobby?
then Ray Bork.
Right.
Yeah, so I've got an affinity for Boston Bruin defensemen.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and now I would say
Two great players.
Oh, for sure. All
Yeah,
time,
two great
in
players.
my opinion, the two best defensemen of all time.
Yeah.
And then Sidney Crosby now.
Right.
Yeah, the guy's just super friendly. It seems
Quiet talent,
but he's intense. But he plays fair. He plays aggressively, but
Right.
within the rules. And the guy's got so much talent.
Yeah.
Even at 30, well, he's 37 now. He's not a kid anymore.
Yeah.
But I love people who are consistently excellent. I love when they give their all, not just from year to year, but from game to game, moment to moment,
Right.
kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah,
Because I always thought if I would have loved to have been a pro athlete, especially
Right.
hockey.
Yeah, you're
But
quite
I
the
always-
hockey player.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you. No, it's just I
Well,
know.
you are.
Yeah, I just
I've seen you play.
Yeah, anyway.
Actually, I played against you, and that was
still playing the ball.
That was a
Hockey,
mistake.
62 against younger guys. So that's
Oh, you're a young
something,
guy
I
st-
guess.
you're a young
It's
guy
getting
still.
harder every shift, let alone every year.
So you're a sports buff.
Yeah.
Tell us about your sports card collection. That would, probably people will be
Yes.
blown away by that.
Yes. Disclaimer: my sports card collection is in the bank and is not at my home. And
Not available. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been collecting since I was a youngster. My older brother Larry, got me involved in it.
Right.
So we used to go to the sports card shows, the shops and such. There weren't
Right.
as many back then, because see, I'm 62 now. So I mean, I was collecting. My first year I collected, it was 1970, the 70-71 O-Pee-Chee series.
Wow.
And so I was 8 years old. I remember going to the corner store. I think 5 cents. They may have just turned to be 10 cents a pack back then, kind of thing.
And how many were in a pack?
Oh, cards, probably 7 or 8. Something like
Wow.
that. Yeah, but I still remember that. It was, yeah.
She would have bought some with the possible Gretzky
Well,
rookie
that was
card.
79, 80. That was
79, okay.
10 years later. But I was,
Right,
yeah,
right.
that was my first year, and yeah. So I mean, I've got 3 of the Gretzky rookie cards.
Wow.
Lower grades, but they are graded too. So, but that's something, yeah. So I used to have a Gretzky rookie box, unopened.
Wow. And you sold that?
I did. American version, the tops,
Right.
not the O-Pee-Chee. Tops is about 2/3 the value of the Canadian O-Pee-Chee.
Probably buy a small house with that now.
Well, that was the reason I sold it, because I needed a down payment for a house, for a
So
second home, actually.
So your box of
It helped.
potential Gretzky
Yeah.
rookie card
Yeah, it helped with the down payment.
help put your down payment on
the
your
home.
first house.
And I wish I'd somehow.
Folks, that's a serious card collector.
And that was 25 years ago. It still got some decent money for it then. It's worth
Wow.
way more.
So how many cards would you say you have?
Oh, I mean, it's not about the number. It's about what it is.
Well, I'm a rookie at this, obviously.
okay.
So for me, it's the number.
Oh, geez. Tens of thousands.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, no, okay. I'm going
Yeah.
to stop you there because I also know that you're a big music fan.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have a collection
Yeah, about
of
400
music.
albums.
400 albums.
Originals. Almost all of them are original.
All still wrapped and
Not wrapped, but they're in very good shape because I always took care of them.
number one group?
Supertramp.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna guess it's in the top 3 anyways. What's your next 2?
Okay, I'll give you, for those who care, I'll give you my top 10 if I can.
Sure.
Maybe not necessarily in order, but first 2 for sure. And it's just based on their musicality and a lot of the lyrics and what people go through at the time as a teenager and things. You kind of remember what the feeling the music left with you. Supertramp and ELO. Light Orchestra have always been my top.
Wow. Okay.
Now that's not to say that I don't love a lot of other groups.
I know one of our marketing guys loves Yellow.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. I wonder who that is. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Brad. Anyway, yeah, Supertramp, ELO, then Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Rush, Stones,
Right.
Pink Floyd, a lot of the big names that most people really like. Like just Van Halen.
Favorite lead singer?
Ooh, that's tough. I probably have to go with Robert Plant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Zeppelin. Yeah.
Right. Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, you could go with all 4 of those guys as far as best at their instruments. People wouldn't necessarily give you much of an argument.
Right.
But yeah, it's just something about, because I grew up and it was circumstantial with just life at the time with Supertramp and ELO that just resonated with me. And
It's funny, a lot of that stuff you listen to the lyrics and you listen to them long enough and enough times, you start realizing kind of the headspace they were in, and you kind of recognize it. That was kind of there too, right?
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
Like I remember even some bands that weren't that big. I mean, I'm a big Van Halen fan, and Zeppelin, of course, but I remember, and I can't remember the name of the band now. It's escaped me. But there's some obscure sort of bands that were around back then. That's some really good lyrical based music.
Yeah. Oh, there's lots of great musicians. I wouldn't even know 1/10 of the musicians out there that are capable of being popular if they really wanted to, or if they knew how to go about doing it.
Right.
There's so many great guitarists and drummers. And
Oh, I know. It's incredible.
You see them in the bars or whatever, and they've got almost no recognition or profile, but you can see talent. Talent when you see it or hear it.
Absolutely, or when you hear it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite type of music? Rock and roll?
Definitely rock and roll.
Yeah.
Classic metal.
Classic rock metal.
Yeah, kind of like that. I like other things though too. I like pop when it's done right.
Right.
Yeah, like to me, 60s, 70s pop.
Who's your favorite pop artist?
Ooh, I guess it depends how you define pop. They're more songs, like some of those one-hit wonders and things like that.
Okay, yeah. Right.
Like Sugarloaf, Green Eyed Lady.
Oh, wow.
The long version.
Great song.
Not the edited version. Can't stand radio edits.
Right.
Give me the whole thing. The longer the better, kind of thing.
11-minute song.
Yeah, like 2112 with Rush, and stuff like that. And Gata DeVita, anything that's
okay. Favorite drummer, since you touched on it.
Oh, geez. I know.
Really? You had to think about that
Yeah,
one?
I
I
do.
thought for sure you'd
No,
jump
no,
on
no,
one of
no,
them.
no,
For sure.
because
I'll tell you what I thought.
because for me it's always between Neil Peart of Rush and John Bonham with Led
See,
Zeppelin.
that's who I thought
So
was
to me,
your
they're a
favorite.
bit different.
But Bonham didn't go the full circuit because he passed, right?
Yeah, 1980.
Yeah, he passed early in their sort of hit career, right?
They did so much in that 11-year period. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, it's personal preference, but they're both fantastic. I really couldn't choose between either one of them. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to cut it short only because we're running short on time, but I want you to now, Tim, I'm going to talk about the fact that Tim is a fantastic writer, reporter, anything to do with that type of art. Tim is the guy to contact. Tim, tell us what's next for you. What is kind of your passion, what you like to do, what you love to do, and how can someone reach out to you if they wanted you to be part of their story?
Sure. And I appreciate the kind words, Clint. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, currently I am writing for a law firm in Toronto called McCarthy Tetro.
Okay.
And just doing more or less in-house profiles and features of lawyers and awards compilations and things of that nature,
Right.
kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I do whatever. I can write pretty much any subject, any style. I like doing copy. I really like copy editing.
Okay.
Proofing, fact checking. It really, the bugaboo, and it should be for all journalists or for anybody for that matter, is accuracy.
Right.
And I want things to be accurate, and I want them to be fair. And that's right down to the smallest details like grammar and spelling and punctuation.
Yeah.
And all that.
So that
I pride myself in those kind of things.
Well, I think that kind of sums up your career. You're a detailed guy.
Yeah, try to
you
be.
work with facts, and you're a professional. So what I'm going to do on your behalf, if I can, is just to say, folks, if ever you wanted to find out more about Tim Whitnell and the work he does, feel free to reach out to DigiHype Media. We're happy to put you on to Tim, and you guys can chat with Tim directly about any projects that you may have. I'm sure Tim would be happy to get involved.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
My last name's kind of unusual, Whitnell. If you Google it, you'll be able to. People can see past stories that I've written because it automatically highlights certain stories that I wrote over the years, kind of thing. So they can at least
they can find you there.
Yeah.
Are you on LinkedIn as well? Maybe.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
That's
so
right.
there's another good portal for you guys to reach out to Tim directly.
Facebook Messenger, LinkedIn.
Yeah. Maybe you're writing your own self novel. I mean, whatever you might be doing, autobiography, whatever you might be doing.
Yeah.
Tim's the guy to reach out to and chat with.
Yeah. I even did a guy's his divorce proceedings once. He wanted me to write his life story.
Oh wow!
To present to the court.
Oh wow!
Really unusual. Very unusual.
Yeah.
Interesting guy. Yeah. Paid really well.
Yeah. You know what? It's all part of it, right? You do a good job.
I've never done it like that before, but he was satisfied with it. I don't know what the court thought of it, but anyway, just to give you an idea, I've just written a broad spectrum of stories and things over the years.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, thank you for being here and being part of our podcast.
Thank you, Clint. Appreciate it very much.
No problem.